The chamber was older than most stars. Commander Elias Vorn felt at the moment he stepped onto the obsidian floor, the weight of ages pressing down on his spine, as if the room itself remembered every verdict ever spoken within its curved walls. Light bent unnaturally around the vast amphitheater, refracting through crystalline pylons that hovered without support. Each pylon held the projection of a ruler, towering in human forms composed of armor, light, chitin, or living stone. They did not sit. They did not need to. Power required no posture. Elias stood alone at the center. He wore no ceremonial robes, no artificial augmentations meant to impress alien eyes. Only the dark uniform of Earth's Stellar Defense Command, worn thin at the cuffs from years of use. His hands were clasped behind his back, not in submission, but discipline. He had learned long ago that fear showed fastest in the hands. Representative of soul, intoned the conclave's voice, not one voice but many layered together, harmonized into something that vibrated inside Elias's skull. You understand why you are here. I understand that Earth was summoned, Elias replied evenly. And that summons are rarely invitations. A ripple passed through the projections. Not laughter. Appraisal. Humanity had risen faster than any species in recorded galactic history. From first radio transmission to faster-than-light travel in less than 3 centuries. From planetary warfare to interstellar diplomacy in less than 1. The rulers had watched, measured, and grown uneasy. Elias had read the reports. He knew the metrics that frightened them. Human adaptability curves that refused to plateau, casualty tolerance thresholds that exceeded predictive models, innovation spikes that occurred most violently under constraint. Humanity did not progress smoothly. It leapt, often from the edge of disaster. You expand without permission, the conclave declared. You innovate without restraint. You weaponize solutions meant for survival. Elias lifted his chin. We solve problems as they appear. That, the voice replied, is precisely the problem. Images flared around the chamber, human fleets responding to pirate incursions with overwhelming force, colonies rebuilt after devastation, technologies repurposed in ways no ruler species would have considered acceptable. Not illegal. Acceptable. You are unstable, the conclave continued. Individually emotional. Collectively volatile. You form attachments to ideas, symbols, and each other that override rational self-preservation. Elias felt a flicker of anger, but he kept his expression neutral. Those attachments are why we survive. A pause followed. A long one. Survival, said the conclave, is not the same as harmony. Elias understood then. This was not a trial. There would be no rebuttal that mattered. The rulers did not rule through debate. They ruled through inevitability. Civilizations that fit were guided. Those that did not were corrected. Or removed. We have determined, the conclave announced, that humanity represents a future variable beyond acceptable tolerance. The words landed heavier than any shouted accusation. Elias felt them settle into his chest, cold and final. Earth will not be destroyed. The voice continued, and for a brief, dangerous moment, hope stirred. Your species will instead be exiled. The chamber shifted. Star maps unfolded, glowing pathways snuffing out one by one as the conclave spoke. Earth and all human-controlled territories will be removed from galactic trade networks. Navigation data will be sealed. Communication relays severed. Your existence will be classified as non-participatory. Elias stared at the maps as Sol's familiar routes dimmed into isolation. You're condemning us to stagnation. No, the conclave replied. We are granting you mercy.
Mercy.
The word tasted bitter. You fear us, Elias said quietly. Another ripple. This time, unmistakable. We fear what you may become without limits, the conclave answered. And we fear even more what you become when limits are imposed. Elias exhaled slowly. He thought of Earth, crowded, divided, relentless. A species that responded to walls not by stopping, but by climbing, digging, or burning through them. A species that turned scarcity into invention and loss into resolve. You believe Exile will make us small, he said. We believe Exile will keep the galaxy safe. Armed escorts appeared at the chamber's edge, silent, faceless constructs ready to ensure compliance. The decision was already propagating through the interstellar lattice. Treaties nullified. Access revoked. Humanity erased with bureaucratic efficiency. Elias activated his communicator, opening a final channel to Earth Command. Faces flickered into view. Admirals, scientists, leaders waiting for a verdict they already suspected. They've decided, Elias began. The signal cut out. The chamber's light dimmed as if the conclave itself had turned away. Interest concluded. Elias was no longer a representative. He was a relic of a relationship that no longer existed. As he was escorted from the hall, he caught one last detail, a minor fluctuation in one of the ruler's projections. A hesitation. Not certainty, but calculation. They were not relieved. They were bracing. Elias allowed himself a thin, humorless smile as the doors sealed behind him. The galaxy believed it had contained a threat by casting it into the dark. Earth had never feared the dark. And humanity had never needed permission to evolve. Decades passed, but Earth never bent. The skies above Sol were empty, or so the galaxy believed. Human ships no longer marked trade lanes, and the once bustling interstellar beacons blinked dead in silent conformity. On the surface, cities thrived, rebuilt from the exiled isolation into structures that bent architecture and physics into new forms. Towering spires of composite alloys cut into the clouds, reflecting sunlight in angles no ruler had predicted. Humanity had turned Exile into a laboratory, and the experiment was brutal in its precision. Dr. Marcus Hale walked along the observation deck of the orbital research platform Aegis. His hands hovered over holographic schematics of new energy conduits, warship designs, and deep space deployment grids. Hale's hair, prematurely streaked with gray, contrasted sharply with the sharp focus in his eyes. He was a weapons theorist, one of the few permitted to merge offensive technologies with human behavioral modeling. Unlike the rulers, he did not fear the unpredictability of humans.
He celebrated it.
Admiral Cross, Hale said, turning as a long shadow crossed the deck. The propulsion arrays are ready. The test simulations show a 73% efficiency improvement over previous models. Admiral Ronan Cross's voice was gravelly, shaped by decades of commanding fleets in both the galaxy's conventional routes and the hidden void beyond. 73% isn't enough, he replied, eyes scanning the same schematics Hale had studied. They will not respect us. They never have. Efficiency is measured in effect, not numbers. Cross had learned to speak like the rulers, calculated, precise, but his mind thrived in unpredictability. Exile had taught him that humanity's greatest weapon was its refusal to conform. While the galaxy slept under the illusion of control, humans trained their minds and their fleets in ways the rulers would never anticipate. They will notice eventually, Hale said, tapping a holographic model of a stealth cruiser. Our observational nodes are already mapping prohibited sectors. We've identified over 20 potential ruler outposts, each vulnerable to concentrated maneuvers. Cross shook his head. Observation is only preparation. Projection is strategy. We need more than numbers and charts. We need to embrace the chaos they fear. The chaos was humanity's ally. When the rulers imposed limits on thought, research, and resource use, humans adapted by discarding those limits. In the silent decades after Exile, Earth had abandoned AI oversight protocols, energy rationing, even galactic etiquette. Every law that once bound them to the expectations of alien civilization had become a foundation to surpass. Hale's fingers traced a pattern across the display, showing the integration of psychological warfare into combat modules. We've incorporated human decision algorithms into fleet AI. Not logic-based programming, behavior-based. Emotional triggers, instinctive reactions, risk tolerance. They will never predict us. Cross's grin was faint, almost imperceptible. Instinct has always been our advantage. They trained us to obey patterns. We learned to improvise beyond patterns. Let them think Exile broke us. They taught us how to be dangerous. In the command center, younger officers moved silently, carrying data crystals and reviewing encrypted communications. Each had trained under the doctrine of unpredictability. Human captains learned to value intuition over calculated certainty, sacrifice over hesitation, and creativity over regulation. They studied alien tactics, not to imitate, but to invert. Hale leaned closer to Cross. The final stage is ready. Cross's gaze darkened. Project Revenant. Yes. Dormant fleets seated across deep space. Autonomous. Waiting for activation. The galaxy believes us absent. They have no idea that presence is a variable they cannot control. They did not discuss the morality of their work. Debate had no place here. Only purpose. Humanity had learned that restraint in exile was surrender. Every blueprint, every drill, every test of human resolve had been calculated to create an existence beyond fear. Cross turned to the viewport, watching the pale blue of Earth spin against the void. They called us unstable. They feared what we might become. They will soon learn what we already know about ourselves. The silence that followed was not emptiness. It was the concentrated potential of a species that had turned isolation into mastery. Hale considered the fleets in hidden orbits, the prototypes beyond sensor detection, the simulations of wars not yet fought. Humanity had abandoned diplomacy because it had learned to treat communication as optional when survival was mandatory. A soft chime broke the moment, a reminder that the world beyond the stations still moved in oblivious rhythm. Data streams indicated alien patrols unknowingly trespassing into mapped human sectors. Cross's eyes narrowed. They think we are forgotten. Every signal we suppress, every route we leave uncharted, it builds anticipation. They have no idea what waits in the dark. Hale exhaled slowly. The galaxy's complacency is our advantage. They assume we failed. They assume fear has defeated us. Yet they cannot see what is being forged here: discipline, innovation, and resolve that even we barely understand. Good, Cross said. Let them remain blind. Let them underestimate the human mind, the human fleet, and the human spirit. Exile did not diminish us. It defined us. And somewhere in the void beyond, in systems the rulers had long since ignored, the first Revenant fleet awaited the signal that would awaken it. Autonomous vessels, built by hands that refused external restraint, each programmed with instincts and strategies the rulers could not imagine, capable of transforming mere presence into a calculated threat. Hale and Cross exchanged no further words. None were needed. The galaxy would assume humanity had been broken. Humanity would let them. Exile had been intended as punishment, but humans had redefined it as preparation. They were no longer confined by alien expectation. Every simulation, every new design, every training exercise was a step toward a singular truth. Earth and its people would not merely survive. They would master the silence in which they had been cast, and when the time came, the galaxy would understand the cost of underestimating humanity. And in that understanding lay terror. The observation deck lights dimmed as Earth rotated below, a quiet blue jewel surrounded by the infinite void. Hale and Cross stood shoulder to shoulder, not as soldiers and scientists, but as architects of something the galaxy had never encountered before, a civilization forged entirely in shadow, disciplined by exile, and guided by instincts that no ruler could ever fully anticipate. Cross's voice, low and resolute, carried over the silent hum of machinery. They wanted us small. They taught us how to be dangerous. The galaxy will soon remember that lesson. Hale nodded, his eyes reflecting starlight. And they will learn it too late. The first phase was complete. Humanity waited, silent but awake, while the galaxy slumbered in false security. If you want, I can continue with Section 3, which introduces humanity's first interactions with the galaxy and begins to reveal the terrifying consequences of exile. The first reports came as anomalies. Trade convoys vanished mid-route. Navigation beacons along well-mapped lanes blinked dead. Pirate enclaves, long considered untouchable, disappeared overnight. At first, the galaxy assumed coincidence, technical failure, or sabotage. None considered that these were the footsteps of a species they had exiled decades ago. High strategist Calthrex observed the data from the central projection chamber of the Conclave's citadel. He was an alien of scaled sinews and six-jointed limbs, each ending in precision manipulators designed for layered calculations. Even with such enhancements, the numbers on the display made him pause. Human signatures were present, unmistakable in metallurgy and energy flux, yet the methods defied every known principle of physics the galaxy had catalogued. "They are active," he said to no one in particular. "They should be isolated. They should be irrelevant. And yet there it is. Evidence." Meanwhile, far beyond the mapped periphery of the galaxy, Captain Noah Rake maneuvered the stealth cruiser Iron Wraith through the black of uncharted space. He had been trained in the doctrines of unpredictability, schooled in strategies that leveraged emotion, instinct, and sacrifice. Unlike the rulers, he relied on human intuition as much as technology, blending the two into something alien and incomprehensible. "Adjust vector 2 degrees starboard," Rake ordered, voice calm, almost indifferent. "The patrols will pass this sector in 23 minutes. Our timing must be perfect." "Understood, sir," replied Lieutenant Rin, her fingers dancing over the command console. Every motion precise, but flexible, reacting to subtle changes in sensor feedback. The Iron Wraith did not carry weapons in the conventional sense. It carried instruments of disruption, systems that could disable fleets without a single shot fired, probes that could infiltrate networks and reprogram defense constructs, and sensors that anticipated movement not in 3 dimensions, but in probabilities humans alone could interpret. "Engagement simulations show a 97% compliance with our expectations," Rake said quietly. "They won't see us coming." Calthrex's counselors convened urgently as more reports flooded in. Sectors along major supply routes suddenly inactive, colonies reporting ghost fleets appearing and disappearing, and outposts stripped of supplies with surgical precision. Panic edged into their deliberations for the first time in centuries. Commander Elias was correct. One of the younger rulers admitted. Humans are not defeated. They are preparing. The strategist's scaled fingers traced patterns across a holographic model of galactic sectors. Each anomaly fit a pattern, yet each was executed with a creativity that defied prediction. "They are not building an empire," Calthrex murmured. "They are deploying contingencies." On board the Iron Wraith, Rake activated a series of automated fleet nodes previously hidden in dormant positions. They were remnants of Project Revenant, autonomous vessels seated in sectors the rulers had deemed safe, waiting silently, invisible, patient. "These fleets," Rake said, "do not respond to direct command. They respond to principle. The principle is survival and leverage. We do not attack recklessly. We remove threats efficiently. Predictability is a weakness." Hale monitored the networks from Earth simultaneously, adjusting the parameters for fleet activation. "They will report compliance," he said. "Alien captains will see humans as one entity, cohesive yet unknowable. They will misinterpret our intent." Rake's mind replayed centuries of exile in calculated bursts, the derision of the rulers, the smirks of alien negotiators, the slow erasure of humanity from interstellar memory. Humanity did not return with vengeance, not yet. They returned with control, with precise interventions designed to sow confusion and fear. First contact occurred in silence. No announcement. No challenge. A mining convoy vanished from Sector Theta 4 without a trace. Alien warships arrived to investigate, only to find their sensors overwhelmed, their navigation disrupted, and their command nodes partially subverted. The few survivors returned with stories that seemed incoherent, even fantastical. "They do not speak," a captured commander reported. "They do not demand. They appear and we are undone. We are unable to anticipate their actions." Calthrex could not deny the truth any longer. Humanity had not merely survived exile, they had transcended it. They had internalized the ruler's fear and magnified it. Rake watched the aftermath of another operation. Human forces had withdrawn before engagement, leaving no conquered territories, no annexed colonies. The message was clear. This was not war in the traditional sense. It was a demonstration of capability, a warning in precision rather than destruction. Hale's voice came over secure channels, measured yet tinged with anticipation. They think us absent. They assume our limits. We have become the variable they cannot calculate. Rake nodded, glancing at his tactical display. Star systems, once forgotten, now glimmered with potential influence. Let them know, he said. The galaxy is no longer theirs to predict. Every route they charted, every outpost they assumed safe, we control the uncertainty. Calthrex convened the conclave in emergency, once more. The ruler's once unshakable calm was gone, replaced by doubt, hesitation, and fear. They are not just a species, he said quietly. They are force, and we do not understand them. The strategist's realization chilled the chamber. Humanity's exile had been intended to erase them. Instead, it had forged them in secrecy, autonomy, and relentless discipline. The galaxy had assumed compliance meant weakness, absence meant defeat. And now, in the silent voids where humans waited, the rulers were learning the truth. The galaxy had underestimated a species that thrived in darkness, mastered unpredictability, and embraced its own terrifying potential. As Rake's fleet glided into the next sector, Hale's calculations confirmed the readiness of the hidden nodes. The dormant fleets of Project Revenant stirred, invisible yet poised, while human minds orchestrated movements that alien species could not follow. Calthrex stared at the projections, unease growing like a storm. They are not here to negotiate. They are here to redefine the rules. The first ripple of fear spread across the galaxy. It would not stop, and humanity, patient, disciplined, and unbound by the limits the rulers had once imposed, was just beginning. The silence of exile had ended. The galaxy would never mistake absence for weakness again. If you want, I can now continue with Section 4, which delivers humanity's ultimate revelation, the HFY payoff, and the galaxy-wide consequences of their preparation. The conclave chamber had never felt smaller. Elias Vorn entered once more, older now, his uniform marked with decades of command and countless unrecorded victories. He walked slowly, deliberately, across the polished floor that had once echoed with condemnation. The rulers had summoned him, not as a representative, but as a warning. For the first time, they did not project confidence. Hesitation trembled in their forms. High Strategist Calthrex approached, scaled limbs quivering. "Commander Vorn," he said, voice clipped but betraying anxiety. We require dialogue. Earth's actions are unprecedented." Elias stopped, letting the words hang. "Unprecedented?" he asked, tone flat. "You mean inconvenient. You feared us then. You fear us now." The rulers shifted uneasily. Centuries of authority, of absolute certainty, were crumbling under the weight of human ingenuity. Calthrex faltered, unable to fully comprehend the scope of what humanity had become. We assumed absence meant submission," Calthrex admitted. "Your fleets, your operations, we cannot predict your intent." Elias allowed a hint of a smile. "Prediction is a luxury humans do not require. Observation is sufficient. You wanted exile to erase us. Exile revealed what we already knew. The galaxy is fragile, and you were complacent." At his side, Admiral Ronan Cross activated the main projection. Star systems flashed, revealing human influence across the forbidden sectors, nodes of power previously invisible, fleets ready, autonomous, and coordinated with an efficiency the rulers could not fathom. Project Revenant had matured exactly as designed. Calthrex's eyes widened. "This, you are everywhere. Why? You could conquer us. You could." Elias shook his head. "We are not here to conquer. We are here to correct the errors you cannot see. There is a threat beyond even your comprehension, an extinction force approaching from beyond the galaxy. Your complacency would have ensured annihilation." The room went silent. The rulers, ancient and supreme, had never faced a species that held moral authority as a weapon. Humanity had prepared alone, refined in secrecy, and emerged not as conquerors, but as guardians. Hale's voice, transmitted from Earth Command, joined the chamber. Every fleet, every outpost, every algorithm was designed for readiness. We waited for the galaxy to forget us. We waited so we could teach you how fragile your control truly is. Kael'Threx's limbs shook. You are offering protection? Elias stepped closer to the projection, letting the full scope of human preparation fill the chamber. We offer the galaxy a chance to survive. But understand this, we will not be manipulated, underestimated, or exiled again. Any species that attempts to do so will be removed from existence, not as punishment, but as precaution. The rulers realized then that fear had never been a deterrent to humans, it had been a guide. Every restriction, every threat, every attempted limitation had been internalized and transformed into capability. Humanity had grown stronger, sharper, and wiser. Admiral Cross's gaze swept across the projections. We do not desire dominion. We do not seek retribution. What we seek is balance. The galaxy will be prepared, or it will fall. And we will act decisively, if necessary. Kael'Threx staggered back, struggling to reconcile his centuries of authority with the reality now displayed. You could have destroyed us. You could have. Elias's expression hardened. And yet we have chosen restraint. You will govern yourselves. You will adapt. But know this, exile will never again be tolerated. Humanity has defined its boundaries, and the galaxy will respect them. A hush fell over the chamber. The rulers, for the first time, were not masters. They were observers, humbled by a species they had sought to suppress. Every flaw in their assumptions, every arrogance of age and experience, had been exposed. Hale's voice resonated one final time. We acted not out of vengeance, but necessity. Survival demands preparation. Exile taught us that. Now, we teach the galaxy the cost of underestimation. Elias turned away from the projection, letting the silence settle like a weight. You once cast us into darkness, believing fear would diminish us. Instead, it forged a species capable of ensuring your survival. Your choice now is simple. Recognize humanity's readiness, or learn to late the consequences of your arrogance. Kael'Threx fell silent, every thought of authority overturned. The conclave had convened countless times over millennia, but never had a species returned from judgment to deliver such moral and strategic clarity. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, uncertain, as though holding its breath. Elias's final words echoed through the chamber, calm but unyielding. We do not seek your throne. We seek only the survival of all who dwell in this galaxy. But know this, the wall we have built is impenetrable, and the watch we maintain is eternal. Never again will a species be exiled. Never again will fear decide policy. And as Elias Vorn exited the chamber, the rulers realized that the humans they had tried to suppress were no longer merely a civilization. Humanity had become the defining force of the galaxy, not through domination, but through preparation, resolve, and the terrifying mastery of freedom. The galaxy would never mistake absence for weakness again. Exile had ended. Humanity had risen. And the stars themselves seemed to acknowledge that a new era had begun. This completes Section 4, delivering the HFY climax, humanity as the galaxy's ultimate, disciplined, and morally guided force, ready to terrify the rulers not with conquest, but with capability, foresight, and survival mastery. If you want, I can now create image prompts for each section, a YouTube description, and thumbnail title suggestions to package the story for maximum visual and marketing impact.